Good morning, everybody. This is Isaac Contreras, and this is Travis Lang joining me as well. He's my partner in crime on this podcast that we've got coming up today. I'm going to start it off real quick with a question, because we're going to call the podcast Moving Our Vets podcast. And so we want some feedback. We want to know if that's worthy of continuing, right? Because we want to make it worthy and valuable to you. So there's a few things that we're going to talk about today, and it's all going to be about VA loans and helping veterans buy and sell their homes. Okay, That's the gist of it. We're going to kind of get off on a tangent, I'm sure. Travis has got great stories behind him, great advice, great experience. I've got a few of those things behind me as well, so I'm sure it's going to be kind of tough for us to stay on topic. But the idea and at the end game is to bring value to you in regards to buying or selling a house using a VA loan, working with a vet or not working with a vet. Trav, give us a quick introduction.
Yeah, well, good morning, everybody, as well. Happy Friday. I am Travis Lang, VP of Mortgage Lending at Guaranteed Rate. I've been a mortgage lender now for 12 years, and I checked a stat the other day. I've done over 600 VA home loans in my career.
That's fantastic.
I've done a few. I've done a few. My grandfather served in Vietnam. A couple of my best friends are in the National Guard. So VA home lending to me is a lot more than just doing loans. It's very near and dear to my heart.
That's awesome.
I'm very blessed to be here, and that's me.
Well, we'll get into that a little bit more, right? So there's two things we do want to talk about today. The first one is chicken or the egg. Well,
yes,
right. In real estate terms, it's do I talk to the lender or do I talk to the real estate agent first? Okay, so we're going to kind of answer that question for you. And then the second question we're going to talk about is eligibility. Are you even eligible for a VA loan? That's kind of a big deal. That's kind of a first step. So, Travis, when it comes to the chicken or the egg question, the realtor or the lender, what's your opinion on who should, if I'm a vet or a widow of a vet, right? Or active, right? We're going to cover all that.
All three.
Any one of those things. Who do I talk to first? Do I hire a real estate agent first, or do I talk to you first?
Hands down, you talk to the lender first. And here's why. And I see a lot of people do it either or. So it's not bad if you talk to an agent first, but you really should talk to the lender first. That should be the chicken and the egg. That should be first, because you got to make sure you qualify what your price range is, what you're comfortable with, so that then when you get your qualification letter and you do qualify for the VA home loan, then your real estate agent can start sending you properties that are within your budget. I have a lot of people in the past that have talked to a realtor first. They get their hopes up, their heart set on certain things. And then once they talk to me, sometimes they get a little bit defeated, because they're like, oh, it's going to cost that. Oh, I didn't know my credit was that. And then it kind of jams it up.
That's such a huge point. That's such a huge point, because and I absolutely agree that you talk to a lender first. I absolutely agree. I love having that contact. I love because finding a realtor matters, right? Finding a good one that understands the VA loan. I have experience with that. About 60, almost 70% of my business is working with vets, is in the VA world, right? So it's a great benefit. It's a great product. We're going to talk about that. But yes, it's important. Make contact. Don't hesitate to make contact with an agent. However, we want to find out, because a lot of times, and having that conversation of what it is, not only what can I afford, but what am I comfortable paying? You just mentioned that, because I've had agents, or I've had pre-approval letters come from VA lenders, from loan officers, just in the general, just like whether it's VA convention or whatever, and they'll get a pre-approval letter, and that person may have a great job, been packing money away in the 401k. And so on paper, they have a budget, they have a pre-approval letter for $600,000, right? Beautiful, man. You can get a lot of house with that just about anywhere.
Yes.
Then you convert that to, when you convert that to a payment, I always ask that question. Okay, great. You got a $600,000, you got a $300,000, you got a $250 pre-approval amount. Do you know what that means as far as a payment? And they're like, well, no, I don't know. And so I always feel like, dang it, the lender should have talked to you about that. That is such an important piece, because I still want to go out and get a burger and a beer every once in a while. But if my payment's too high on my house, I'm not going to be able to do that, even though I qualify for that. Tell me more about that, Travis.
Yeah. And, another good point is, a lot of times if, you do go to the real estate agent first, their first question, right, is going to be, well, have you talked to a lender? Can you get a loan, or are you buying the house in cash? And the reality is most people can't buy houses in full cash. Very small.
That's why we're talking VA loans, right? Because very little cash.
Exactly. And that's one of the best benefits of the VA home loan, is it's no money down.
Correct.
So when it comes to a payment, and knowing what you can go out there and start to look for a house price that then equals to your mortgage, is that, you got to get some payment quotes up front. And if you're comfortable with $1,200, $1,500 a month, or $2,000, one of the number one things I talked to a new client about is, I'm like, hey, there's two things here. When it comes to your pre-approval, there's what I can get you approved for on paper.
Yep.
But then there's where you're comfortable at. Correct. Usually those are two different things. And we want to set you up for success. So that's where I talk to them about, what are you paying now? Are you comfortable with what you're paying now? Could you afford a couple hundred more? What are you netting on your paychecks? Yeah. What's left over? And I go very deep with my clients, because I never want to set them up for failure. And I always want them to know, hey, remember, there's utilities. Yeah. There's taxes, there's insurance. Let's talk about those now. I get into all that in the pre-approval. So once you're out then with your agent looking at properties, you're not going to feel like you got blindsided, because that's the biggest thing I want to prevent on my heart, is that you're well suited and ready to go with the letter in hand, knowing your payments, knowing what utilities roughly cost, knowing the house prices you should search for. Don't be searching for 400 if then you get excited and you come around and you're like, oh, that's going to be $2,000 a month. I can only afford 1,500. We don't want to, waste anybody's time. Yours is the client. Yours.
It's so hard to go show a house to someone, to go show a house that someone cannot buy. Yes. It's already tough enough out there because there's not enough inventory. We're competing, especially this frenzy. I mean, it was a frenzy earlier this year. Right now it's November 5th, 2021, but holy smokes, March, April, May, it was just a frenzy, and there was so much cash in the system. Yeah. I mean, it's already tough enough to lose out on a house, but man, go show a house that you can't buy. So that's where if you got a good real estate agent, and one that understands VA loans, but also just understands the profession, understands the process, it's so important to go and look at a house that you're comfortable making that payment on, because that's what it comes down to.
Absolutely.
Is this that pre-qualification talk that we're, the pre-qualification stage that everybody talks about?
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I mean, I'd love to jump on real quick of, probably a lot of military men and women that are going to watch this. They're going to wonder, how do I qualify for a VA home loan? Like what are some of the basics? And here's a couple of them in case they're wondering. If you've been active duty for at least 90 consecutive days,
Okay.
it cannot include training. This needs to be actual 90 days of active duty.
Yes.
And if you've been in the Guard for at least 6 years,
Yeah.
you're qualified.
So do you have to be in the Guard? Let's say if you're a guardsman and you've been in the Guard, let's look at, especially with last year's events, right?
Yep.
You've got a lot of guardsmen who were activated, right, for all the protests around the country. I'm here in Minneapolis, right, or Minneapolis, St. Paul, so I'm in the Twin Cities area.
Yep.
Part of where our tragedy happened last year so a lot of our guardsmen and reserves were activated, and they only had 2 years in, 3 years in.
Yep.
How would they qualify? Would they qualify?
Depends how long they got switched to active duty, and then if they got switched back, right? So what you'll want to do is, if you're currently serving, you have to get your lender what's called your statement of service letter. Some people call it a points letter. You can get it from your commanding officer, or somebody right out of the branch that you're in, and it shows, you know, your rank. It shows how long or when you got in, and then it shows your points. And right there and then, a lender can take that letter, send it into the VA portal, and within 2 to 3 days, we're looking for what's called your certificate of eligibility.
Okay. Yes, we're going to talk about that.
Yep. Now you can get your own by calling the VA. There's a number that you can call, and you can request one yourself. But I always like to tell my men and women that are looking for a VA loan, either get me your statement letter, or if you've been discharged and you're retired out of the military, we're going to need what's called your DD-214, your discharge document. And if you have that, just send that to your lender. They'll get your certificate of eligibility document for you. It's called your COE. And that will say right there in the right-hand corner if you're eligible or not. And then it'll also say if you're exempt or non-exempt for the VA funding fee. And that's huge, because that's the first step that you'll take with your lender to prove, because I actually get a lot of men and women that say, I think I have my VA eligibility, I'm not sure. And then I ask right away. And if they know the 1 or 2 quick questions, which are, well, I went across seas. And if you immediately have been deployed ever, you're qualified right away on day 1. So if you've ever been deployed, if you've ever went across seas, you'll be eligible. I know that. 6 years in the Guard, and then 90 days consecutive of active duty. Those are the 3 main pieces. Because a lot of guards
reserve 90 days consecutive
of considered active duty. Correct. Yep. Now a lot of guardsmen get confused because they're like, well, I was active for like a couple months, and then we'll look into it and we'll see that it was like partially training.
Okay.
So and that doesn't count
together.
Nope, you can't.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Now there are some special circumstances, and if you kind of do some research, and even if you look at the VA handbook and you dive into some of the guidelines of it, there are some times where if you've helped out in like a natural disaster, you know, like a flood, or you've been activated like last year, certain things will then jump in and qualify for that 90 days. Yeah. So sometimes if we're questioning it, we'll send in the document to the VA portal, get the COE back, and then it'll say right there on the document why, what, and when. Yeah. And then that way we can kind of help you out, decide it, or help you figure out when you will be eligible.
So and I want to kind of stay in the weeds on this one, because
sure,
here in Minnesota, we have a lot of guardsmen. We have a ton of guardsmen. Not so many sailors, right? I'm a Navy vet myself, and it's funny because I was looking through some docs the other day. I pulled out an old folder of mine, and it has my honorable discharge certificate, because I was looking to see what the name of my reserve unit was after I came out of active duty. I went into the reserve unit here in Fort Snelling. Believe it or not, it was a submarine support unit. Um, yeah, in Fort Snelling, right? It's an old World War II reserve unit when I got out, and still remnants of it because it was created right after Pearl Harbor, and so
Oh, sure. Yeah.
it's a lot harder for for the enemy to bomb and get rid of submariners and their support um, in the middle of Minnesota than it is if there's
I can see that. I can see that.
right. But it was so weird because that was 96, 96.
Wow.
And I was a diesel engineman. I was an engineman, which basically means I'm a diesel mechanic or any general mechanic. And there hasn't been a diesel submarine since like 78 or something like that. So getting assigned to that was really weird. But I let them send me to Hawaii for my 2 weeks, so I wasn't mad.
That's a perk.
Yeah,
That's a perk.
with that, I got, so once I got out of the reserves and I was out of my active reserves and I received my discharge for that as well, my honorable discharge, I also received an eligibility, a veterans benefit eligibility, that certificate of eligibility that you're talking about. I received a hard copy of it when I got out, during my transition out. So I wanted to stay in the weeds a little bit on that National Guardsman piece, or the Guardsman piece, because we have a lot of National Guard around here. And I know with the protests that were happening last year, a lot of folks they were activated, and they were activated to stand guard here in the Twin Cities. There were some units that were activated and sent to DC, things like that. And so
Yep.
the 90 days for some of those folks were piecemealed, right? Like the 90 days is piecemealed, but you're saying they should send it in, even if they are not sure, we should send it in and let
Absolutely.
the PA decide.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that is correct. In those special circumstances categories, right? Because the handbook says consecutive.
Yeah, that's the one that gets me.
Yep, but that's where if we're not sure, a lot of times I'll send them in, and then we'll find out then when. If it's not yet, then we can find out when. And then that's where a lot of men and women that are about to get their VA eligibility, they can look at a conventional loan then first, and then they could always refinance to a VA loan later if it works for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can dig that. So 90 days consecutive, you said 6 years in the reserves and guardsmen?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, what else?
And then if they've ever been deployed, immediately.
You said that.
Yep. So those are the main ones, right? And then if you guys have any questions, or as we kind of get into more of the topics as the weeks go on, we can kind of dissect some more of the if I am qualified for a VA, if I have my eligibility. But those are the
sorry, I didn't mean to do that because I just remembered. You just helped me with the client. We closed last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they were what? How did she qualify? She
Go ahead.
As a surviving spouse of a veteran.
Yes. And that one can be tricky. So I'll just put a little caveat out there. If you're a widower of a surviving spouse, and your husband or wife has passed, you can possibly use their certificate of eligibility and do a VA loan on your next purchase or refinance. But that one can get very dicey. There's a lot of moving parts in that one. So if this is you, or that is you, and that does sound like something that you fall in the category of, definitely get that DD 214, send it into the lender, and they'll run it for you, because there's a lot of caveats to that one.
Yeah. But it does opens the books for somebody who does qualify, which is one of the
Awesome.
benefits we don't want to take advantage of, right? But
Yep.
but it is there for those who it applies to. So make sure
Yes.
we keep that in mind, and that's part of our conversation too, just to find out how, there's a lot involved with that COE piece, and it's at the very beginning. We want it at the very beginning, because we don't find out, we make an offer on a house. And this is why having a strong lender matters, a strong loan officer matters, who knows.
Big time. Big time.
We don't want to make an offer on a house and then then we lose the house because something was funky with that COE, or
Yeah.
a lot of things that can affect that COE, right?
A lot of things. You never want to make an offer on a house unless you and your lender has received that COE. You got to get that and the pre-approval letter first, both, before you get an offer on a house made. But a couple of cool things too to add in is that a lot of people ask, what does my credit score need to be to get a VA home loan? Right now, 90% of lenders are wanting a minimum of a 600 or above, but there are some out there still that will go down to a 580.
Okay.
But that 580 to 600 credit score range does have a lot of moving parts as well.
Yeah.
So I'll preface that by saying, if you have at least a 580 or above, you got a very good shot with your credit score. And then a lot of people think your VA home loan is only a one-time thing. It's not. You can reuse your VA loan as many times as you want, as long as you're selling and buying. Plus, you can actually have 2 VA loans at the same time. But I'm not going to get into all the details of that.
We'll talk about that one in a different podcast, right?
So that's good.
We got to unpack that one.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's and I'm glad you're talking and you brushed on it. You touched on it just a few seconds ago. Most lenders, and 90% of lenders, and some will do this, some will do that. And this is something that I always talk to all of my clients, all of my folks that are looking for to buy a house, right? When they're going to get qualified. You got to understand that every lender borrows money differently.
Yep.
So you may have a bank that will say, oh, you qualify for this, and you got this, and you got that. And then you may go over to another big bank that says, well, you need these other things. Then you might go to someone like Travis, who borrow his company. They borrow money totally different than a big bank or a credit union, which is they do great work. They just borrow it differently. And so why would somebody go to you in the big scheme of things? If they've got a bank that they've been banking at for 20 years, or they've got a credit union that they've been banking at for 20 years, not that that's bad. That's not what we're saying here.
Right.
Why is yours different?
Here's the main difference. So you got the VA guidelines out of the VA manual, the handbook, that lenders need to follow this. But then your banks, credit unions, and mortgage companies have what are called overlays on top of the VA home loan guidelines. So you as a future home buyer need to find a lender that doesn't have these overlays, that only follow VA guidelines, because then you can go at a lower credit score. You can not have to be on the job for as long. What overlays are just rules on top of rules. And why do some lenders have those? Most of those lenders are the bigger banks, the bigger credit unions that are afraid of taking risk. And because they have to service their own loans, they try to hedge the risks of defaults, of foreclosures and short sales. So it comes down to this. You need to educate yourself on finding a mortgage lender that does VA home loans that only has to follow the VA handbook. And why some lenders can do that are the ones that are bigger, that sell off their loans. Because they do, they don't have to have those overlays. Because if your bank is going to take your mortgage and then service it, they're worried about it going to default. So then they're going to put the rules on top of the rules to minimize mortgages that could go to foreclosure.
So give me an example of an overlay
Yeah,
that
I
is,
see a lot.
yeah, okay, the common one, like we would see, yeah, I see a lot of.
Most common one is the so-and-so bank told me I'd have a 640 credit score to do VA. Is that true?
Yep.
And
Okay.
I'm like, no, not at all. And they're like, oh, they said that's what VA said. No, not true. No, your credit score, like I said, your credit score can actually go down to 580 with my lending institution. Oh, really? And then boom, we get them a house in a month or two, and they can't believe it because they were about to just go with what the first person told them, but that first person wasn't going to tell them, well, if you tried a few other places.
And that's that overlay. That's that
Overlay.
the VA will take a loan down to 580, right? As long as other things are, that borrower has the other quality, meets all the other stuff. You're saying your bank would have an overlay of maybe 600, just an example.
Yep.
But the one that they were at said 640. And this is what I mean by all the lenders borrow money differently.
I like that. I usually say not all lenders are created equal.
Not true.
That's my other, the same thing that you're saying. The other one I commonly always hear and see is so-and-so said I can only go up to 200, but I want to get up like to 250. What can you do for me? Yeah. And then and a lot of times I'll get some weird variances where I'm like, they only told you 200? Yeah. And then I'll pull up their application that they submitted to me and I'll be like, you can actually go up to 300 with me. And they're like, where's
that risk, right? That's that risk.
Right? That's that overlay. That bank is saying, we're not letting any home buyers go above debt to income ratios of 40% or more. We're capping you. Whereas VA doesn't actually have a cap.
Wow.
You can go up to 50, 55, 60 if the lender closing the loan allows it.
Wow. So that's, and I'm glad you're touching on that one because that's another one we need to unpack in a different podcast as well.
We do.
As we're wrapping this one up, but I want to ask, Trav, why does this matter to you? Like, why is this conversation and why is for those of you who haven't met Travis, there's a passion here. Okay. So tell me why are you doing this?
I'm doing this because, well, bigger story was how my grandfather and my grandmother used to get lied to by banks back in the day, which I didn't know when I got into the mortgage industry. Yeah. But as I got into the mortgage industry, like I said, I'm on my 12th year. It was about year number 3 or 4. I still remember it. And I started to hear all these people call and tell me that other lenders were telling them lies and stuff that's not true. And it kind of built this kind of deep passionate animal in me. And I wake up every day and my goal is to find as many men and women, regardless of the home loan program we do, and to find people that need the truth. Yeah. And even if sometimes they don't, want to hear it or they just need guidance, I want to be the one to find them. And when I was a senior in high school, this is the bigger why of my story in this industry. We were coming back from a wrestling tournament and we came into our house, pulled in the driveway. It was Christmas time. It was we were coming back from a wrestling tournament. Our door was broke down and me and my family's house was robbed. And I'll never forget my dad crying.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the first time I ever heard my dad cry.
Yeah.
And he was like, our house now doesn't feel like home. And that feeling of being robbed and being told the untold truth of people deserve the truth. It's not about interest rates and fees. It's about, can I get a house? I want a house.
Yeah.
And those people need the truth. So as I got into the mortgage industry, my why and my passion goes from people being able to get the feeling of home, getting the truth.
Wow.
And I need to expose and get the people in this industry that are lying to people out, and finding the people that need the truth, the truth.
Yeah. Feeling at home. Holy smokes. That one I wrote that down. I take notes, right?
Yeah.
That feeling of holy smokes. I didn't know that. That is outstanding. I get it. I get it. I absolutely understand what you're saying. I would,
Isaac, yours now. Now I want to hear yours.
Yeah.
Mine was, I'm sorry.
Geez, that's, there's a lot of it. I love working with vets, right? There's something there about that. I've been, I was in the Navy and this is another thing that I just found out. I've said that I was in the Navy for 6 years, right? But it turns out I was technically in the Navy for 7. I just found that discharge papers. So I gotta change that story a little bit. But I was active duty Navy for a little over 5 years, and then I came home, and then I moved into the reserves. I transferred into the reserves, and I left and was discharged. The discharge date was December 12th, 1998, right? So I got in 91, served 5 years, but there's just something about working with vets. And I was fortunate enough that in my career as in the Navy, I had done a number of different things. I had spent a couple years stationed with a special warfare unit in New Orleans called Special Boat Unit 22. And there we specialized in riverine warfare, and it was a reserve unit. So I was active duty for a reserve unit, and we spent a lot of time in the bayous, training in the bayous of Mississippi and Louisiana. We would get, and this was this was 91, or this was 92 to 93. And then during that time, 92, 93, into 94, into March of 94, we got deployed to Panama. Some of our folks spent some time in Colombia, things like that, doing riverine warfare, and we got to work with really, really great guys. And we got to work with Air Force because we needed to get our boats moved, across the world, either from New Orleans to Camp Lejeune in over on the Carolina coast, or if we would get our boats down to Panama or other places. We worked with Air Force. We worked with because they had the big C5 Galaxies, right? And then we worked with Army Special Forces. So we worked with some Green Berets, and we worked with Airborne. We worked with Rangers, and then in the Marines, we worked with Marine Recon, and we worked with Marines, their RAC units, Reverse Craft is what it's called, their RAC units. And then obviously we worked with Navy SEALs as well. So I got to touch a lot of that stuff, which is not normal in the Navy, right? What you would think about as a sailor, haze, gray, and underway. So bringing that, and I say all that because I was haze, gray, and underway. I was stationed on a frigate based out of Yokosuka, Japan. Did my West Coast deployments. And so we went to, Dubai, and we were in Pakistan, and we went
Oh,
to
wow.
Singapore and Hong Kong and Australia a couple times, the Philippines. I mean, we did all that stuff, right? What you would consider to
Wow.
Navy. And
Wow.
so I touched a lot of that, right? And then I kind of preface all that because when I came out,
Mm-hmm.
and then getting into sales. I've been in sales for over 25 years. It's just something I love. I was on your side of the computer screen, right? I was a lender for a while, a loan
Mm-hmm.
officer for about 4 years. But I landed here as an agent, and I love working with vets. I love working with VA loans because I get to have conversations with vets, right? Even active duty. And there's a connection there because I can connect with soldiers because I got my boots dirty down in Fort Sherman too.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
Panama. I can relate with Marines because I got my boots dirty over in Camp Lejeune, right?
Yeah.
I actually connected with a Navy SEAL, retired Navy SEAL here in the Twin Cities, who actually knows my boat unit because he
Oh, wow.
when that unit transferred over to the East Coast. So to find a sailor in Minnesota, to find a sailor who also has that Navy special warfare experience, who knows Special Boat Unit 22, like that was,
Wow.
there's nobody
That's
else,
cool.
right? There's people, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but being able to have that relationship and being able to have that connection is such a powerful thing for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I get involved with different organizations. I've been politically active. I'm civically active. I ran for city council. I was on the planning commission. Right now, I'm a part of excuse me, a chapter president for NAREP, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. And all of this stuff is super important to me because when I can help somebody get something that they didn't know was in their hands, like within grasp,
Yeah.
and help them understand that this is something that you can do. It's such a huge, it's fulfilling. Like this is why I love the job. This is why I love the work that I do, because I tell folks, and I tell this to everybody, I says, the moment you decided that you wanted to buy a house,
Mm-hmm.
you are now the one operating from a position of power, right? Whether you're actually able to or not is two different things, right?
Yeah,
Like
it is.
I know 6, 7 people that if they spotted a house could go out and buy it tomorrow, right? That's it. Everybody's got to get a mortgage, right? So,
Yeah.
so whether it takes a month, whether it takes 2 weeks, or it takes an hour of pre-qualifying with you, or it takes a year, 2 years,
Yeah.
because you decided, now are operating from a position of power. You get to decide your lender. You get to decide your real estate agent. You get to decide your inspector. You get to decide all of your insurance agent, title company, all of these things. I'll guide you, right? I'll give
Right.
you the best advice and experience and speak from experience. But ultimately, you're the one that hires us all. And most folks don't know that. They don't even feel that. Um, but that's the reality. And I believe that people should know that. And I believe people should feel that as well. Like I have options. And
Mm-hmm.
the statistics say otherwise, but you know, buying a house, it creates that cornerstone for wealth accumulation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it stabilizes a family, right? Because buying a house is such a family activity, right?
Yep. It
Um,
is.
it
It is.
stabilizes a family. You're not, some folks grew up moving 20 different times in 7 different high schools and all that. That's so hard on people. And
Hard.
being able to just plant your feet and know what your payment is going to be for the next 30 years. Like, that is such a powerful thing, and such it's such a powerful thing, and to be able to be a part of that, like, that matters so much to me.
Big deal.
And that's why. And so when I can do that for vets, and have that relationship, and be able to come back to them, and, you know, just I love it. It feels good to me. It feels like home. And that, how did you put it? The feeling of home. See, I wrote that down.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah, my son is serving right now. I've helped active duty sailors move from their duty station to here in the Twin Cities.
And you can relate to them. You can relate to them.
And it's so much fun. It's so much fun talking about a ship, or talking about a fort or a camp. Yeah, I love it. So that's a little bit of my why. I got much more, but I don't want to take up. I know we've already gone quite long, and I hope you've hung in there so far.
Yes.
But you know, a couple of things I think we should talk about next time. I think in one of the future podcasts, we talk about that DTI, right? And then we also talk about, oh, there was something else that I wanted to talk about, but that DTI. But if you can remember what we chatted about before, you know, do you have any suggestions? We want to ask you, do you have any suggestions? Do you have any specifics that maybe even your scenario, let us know. We want to be able to answer those to the best of our ability. And just like anything else, if we don't know the answer, we'll get it for you. We'll get it for you.
Absolutely. And I know next week I'm going to touch on the power of the right lender and the right real estate agent, and why that matters, and why it actually is a big deal.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about that. That matters.
Oh, we'll see you next week.
All right. Good talking to y'all. Thank you.
Okay, bye guys.